Hello everyone. On behalf of Malik Fahad Adil, Hasan Ijaz, Ali Zakaria, and myself, Mohammad Hamza Omer Siddiqui, I welcome you all to the video presentation of our research project.
So our research project says a lot about dorms and university life. Whenever we consider university life, we always have a aspect of roommate compatibility and dorms. How roommates are acting with each other, it impacts a lot of things, and we will talk about it more.
Our research question is, to what extent does allocation of roommates based on collective identity affects university experience? The upcoming slides include our rationale and a mini literature review on the same question.
So why is roommate compatibility even important for us? So roommate compatibility is a really important aspect because many researchers and the research that we did says that roommate compatibility impacts the academic life and the social life of the roommates over here. So it can be either be positive or negative. If it is positive, then it can be helpful to prevent a lot of tragedies, and it can provide the roommates with a healthy environment, which is really necessary for their academic success. So how can we deal with such a problem? We can allow roommates to be open to diversity. Diversity allows meaningful cognitive dissonance, and we'll talk more about it.
So talking about our sample size and methodologies to conduct this research, our samples included almost 71 people, and they were of all nationalities, including Turkish domestic students as well as international students, because it was important to know the perspective of everyone. That too includes of all years, freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and senior years. The method we used to conduct research was we made forms via Google Forms and we made questionnaires in order to ask them some questions. And one and two of the very major questions we felt were important to ask were that did they choose their roommate? And if we look at the poll as shown in the slides, the ratio of students who did not choose their roommates, international or domestic, was much higher than that of who chose their roommates.
Does roommate compatibility form even works? Actually, it might, because Stanford University handpicks its freshman students while pairing them up, and it is actually good because of their commonalities, but there might be a bit difference between them. However, researchers have showed that there was probable long-term relationship between them. But does Sabancı University actually has such a form? And should the roommate's name be disclosed during the assignment? I think it shouldn't, because in the age of social media, preconceptions may develop on their social identity. Is compatibility subjected to collective identity? So what is collective identity? When I say collective identity, I'm talking about making groups for nationalities, for other nerdy people, or for outgoing people. So collective identity helps to provide a common ground, and however, the individual identity enforces more social interaction, social differentiation. However, in such conditions, conflicts might trigger on the deflection of responsibility, which will be more discussed further on. And social media can also act as a mediator or a platform to spread rumors.
So the real question is the self in selfie. Are you really what you portray yourself to be in social media? I think this question is very important to answer in this age of social media, when social media is integrated in almost every part of our life. And this is especially important for those people who have selected their roommates themselves. This question is really important to answer because and roommate selection is a very essential process towards a strong and a healthy future year, because you're going to live together all this time, and if your social identity conflicts with that of your personal identities, this can lead to harmful events such as bad academics, your social life can be affected, and you can be prompted to take strong measures such as suicide even. So this is one picture that I found really interesting in terms of social
Definitely.
identity and real identity, in terms of a man half being shaped as someone else and, shaping the other half. If you see this in terms of real identity versus identity on social media, I find this very
Yeah,
intriguing to give us
it's quite
information
different.
on.
And
So another question that arises with this research is that, do you really think that a person himself changes with their roommates? Because sometimes you do not no, but you're developing some characteristics when you're living with a stranger. You explore yourself, you learn about your capabilities, you learn about, you add on to your character, which is why you build up your personality, and then your social and personal identity changes, which is another aspect I felt was important to address in this research. Because even though you address about your roommate a lot, you might complain about them, but how does their lifestyle affect you? And secondly, a research says that people that live with their roommates have nothing in common with them, but they still seem to learn a lot about themselves while living with them, which I was very interested to learn about. So I thought of adding this aspect to my research and looking into it if is it really true? Do they change or do they not?
So up till now, we have been talking about how domates are allocated. Once you are allocated, what dictates your relationship are initial impressions. That's what a research article said. If you have positive initial impressions, Fahad,
yeah, you live longer with the roommate.
you start on the right foot and you are friends with each other. You are very satisfied with the relationship amongst you, and possibly you are going to live the rest of the semesters together. There are two quotes on the screen, as you can see, which say the same. Another novel I found said that if you are from different backgrounds but you still live together in dormitories, you are going to be friends eventually and going to learn from each other. Right, Hamza?
Exactly. You will.
And this is one of the aspects that we are going to find out through our research. Okay, not everyone gives this mug to their dormmates because conflicts occur. Since we are human, it's in our nature. But do these conflicts occur naturally, or maybe it's because of the identity crisis we face? As Hamza mentioned previously, there is a social identity and then there is a private identity. But dormmates, they need to reveal their private identity to each other. It may be their habits, culture, lifestyle, I don't know what. But this is what we are going to find out in our research. Another thing is, if you have positive initial impressions, then you are going to resolve in conflicts more by solution oriented approach, and you are going to have a long lasting relationship with your dormmates.
So a question that arrives is, how well do you know your roommate? We see that this question revolves around social identity, the theory. What does that comprise of? Different values, ethnicity, restriction on practices, and the sexual orientation of your roommate in particular. Now we look at the fact that preset hierarchy and social standing plays a big part, especially when you're valuing the rights of minorities, who could in turn end up to be your roommates. So not considering each roommate's values when doing anything of any sort would prove somewhat fatal. Now, when we look at HB and Fahad, they have a wonderful relationship as roommates, don't you
Definitely.
guys? And this is backed up by a fantastic standard quote by Kane when he mentions that a relationship conflict is the most common because it happens when a roommate does something that goes against the values of another roommate. We look at the picture on the left, we see they're all penguins. They all might appear to be the same, but they're all different. They all have, when we compare them to humans, for example, studying in the exact same university, they all have different social identities. And these social identities compromise different values, different ethnicities, different backgrounds, we see that due to the arrival of these conflicts, there needs to be something that neutralizes them. When you want to neutralize it, you have to consider the needs, the values, and the ideas that your roommate holds. So we look at certain living situations which provide a new territory for roommates of different cultures to explore. However, sometimes it arises that One roommate makes a decision, however, he's not aware of the other roommate's culture or background, and it catches the other roommate off guard. In order to avoid the situation, you have to negotiate a space that allows all roommate cultures to coexist, and this space is very important. Yeah.
Here is a list of the references that we used. Think about all the questions that we discussed. We will see you guys in the seminar presentation.